Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. Happy New Year once again. So I decided to start off this new year with 7 things that I'm looking for in 2025. Of course, there's so many more, but 7's a good number, especially since we talk about it so much on this channel. But these are kind of the first 7 big things that I can think of that I just want to put on your radar in case you aren't thinking about this already. So, again, sorry, we've been talking about this a lot lately, but it just kind of blows me away. Within the last couple weeks, I found out that Joseph Smith was doing, and when I say Joseph Smith was doing, I mean, I'm sure it was by revelation. He was doing this 7-year cycle, and he was calling it Jubilees, like Jubilee Years, even though in the Old Testament, a Jubilee is 50 years. Things are different in this last dispensation and since Christ came, and don't know exactly what to call it, but he called it Jubilees every 7 years. We would think of that as sabbatical years, or in Hebrew, Shemitas. The first one was during the 7th year of the history of the church. So the first year was 1830. The 7th year was 1836. That's the year that the Kirtland Temple was dedicated, and he declared a Jubilee. You can pause and read it right here if you like. And then 7 years later, 1843, he did another one. And Wilford Woodruff talks about this too. You can pause and read this if you'd like. And then as far as I know, that was it, unless this is some type of divine timetable, or maybe the brethren still keep an eye on these years. I have no idea. But when you fast forward in time and you get to 2025, 2025 is the 28th of those 7-year cycles. It's the 28th time. Remember, President Nelson became president of the church in the 27th back in 2018. And in just a few days, in a couple weeks, he's going to hit his 7-year anniversary. And we had these 2 incredible total solar eclipses in the years before these Joseph Smith Jubilee years. So I'm looking at 2025. I just want to see in general, is something special going to happen in the church? It's interesting that for the April General Conference this year, April 6th is on the Sunday of General Conference. And by the way, Joseph Smith, when he designated those 2 Jubilee years, it was in conjunction with April 6th. So this year, April 6th is on a Sunday, and it's a Jubilee year. So it may be an interesting General Conference. I have no idea. So I'm just looking at that in general. Okay, the next thing. Now, this is President Nelson's New Year's Day post. This will probably be my next video. I wasn't planning on doing this. We slept in because we were up until pretty late last night. And so the video I'm doing right now is a little bit easier to make. It's quicker. We're about to go out and eat. Our New Year's tradition is to go to a brand new restaurant that we haven't been to before for New Year's Day. And so that's what we're about to do. Okay, but anyway, I'm looking at President Nelson because he is now 100 years old. And I'm not expecting him to pass away necessarily anytime soon, but it could happen. I'm not looking forward to it. But when it does happen, it's definitely going to be the end of an era. President Nelson's presidency is unlike any other that I've seen before. When it moves on to whoever is next, President Oaks or whoever, it's going to be really interesting what happens next, because President Nelson's presidency has been filled with surprises. Both things that he has not that he's chosen to do, it comes by revelation, but things that he has done as president of the church, as well as just the signs of the times that have taken place during his presidency. Like 2020, everything that happened in 2020, these eclipses, solar maximum with these auroras, the purchase of the Kirtland Temple, just on and on and on. I'm not going to list all the things, but it's been pretty wild. So when he passes away, I'm just like, what is next? What comes next? There's the whole thing with him being the heart surgeon, working on the heart of the church, which is, like working on Zion, the pure in heart, the one of heart, one of mind. And then President Oaks, who became an apostle at the same time that he did, if he's next, he's the judge. So that's a little bit ominous. So, I have my eyes on that. It's very interesting. Excuse me. Okay. Oh, and then there's the whole potential symbolism of how Moses, the only three that reached the promised land from Egypt, who had lived in Egypt and then wandered in the wilderness for 40 years and then made it to the promised land, was Moses, Joshua, and Caleb. And Moses didn't actually enter into the promised land, but he saw it. And the scriptures indicate that he was old. It seems like he was like past his time, that when he should have probably passed away, as though the Lord was sustaining him and extending his life. And then in our church, we know that he was translated, so that probably had something to do with it. But President Nelson could be like the Moses who, just like Moses, President Nelson is focused on Israel, specifically gathering scattered Israel, which you can only do with the priesthood key that Moses brought back. And President Nelson might be leading us up to the millennium, the promised land. And because he's 100 years old, the new type of death in the millennium is you don't go in the grave anymore. You're changed in the twinkling of an eye from someone who's translated to a resurrected being. That's the new type of death. And so say that the millennium started today, like Christ came and now we have the new way that things are done in the millennium. I can only assume that immediately he would be changed in the twinkling of an eye. So he wouldn't like live in mortal life in the millennium. He would be a resurrected being. And then President Oaks, he's not 100 years old yet, so he would become the next president of the church under Christ. I don't know how the organization is going to be, but I'm sure that Christ will still have a prophet. And so I'm looking at that. I'm looking to see what happens. May President Nelson live, as long as possible. I'm not wishing that he passes away, but when he does, it's going to be interesting. Okay, so I'm looking at that. I'm also looking specifically at the next earthquake that's going to be 8.0 or above. This is my spreadsheet for earthquakes. You can access my spreadsheets anytime. The link is in the description box of each video. The last time that we had an earthquake that was 8.0 or above was all the way back in 2021. And you can see that, I don't know, I guess if you average it out, this only goes back to 1985. I rely on Wikipedia for these numbers, which I think are accurate enough for our purposes. If you were to average it out, maybe you would have one like once every other year, but for a while there, it was at least one a year from 2003 to 2015. There was at least one a year. 2007, 7 of all years, had 4. You also have these 9.0s right here. So, and then 2021, which is 3 7s, it had 3 of them. But as you can see, it seems like we're a little bit overdue for the next one. And of course, they can come and go without incident, if they're in a remote area. So it's not like it's a guarantee that there's going to be some catastrophic event. But it could, especially with the way that the world is going, the way that it seems like we're just getting so close to the second coming. I can only imagine that the next one would probably be disastrous. So, yeah, and it could even be a 9.0. The last time that we had one of those was 2011, and then before that, 2004. And then those are the only ones that I have here. The one in 2011, that's the one that caused that major tsunami for Japan. It was disastrous. It was like something out of a movie. And yeah, the one in 2004, that was the Indonesian earthquake and tsunami that killed over 200,000 people. So I don't know. It seems like we're getting close to the next one. Okay, so I'm looking at that. Okay. I just read during the live stream yesterday that we are now in solar maximum, according to NASA, and we will be over this next year, 2025. And it has already caused some pretty interesting things to happen. Living in Kansas, I've now seen the Aurora Borealis 2 times. Once in May, and then the other one was in October, if I'm not mistaken. I never expected to see the aurora in my life. I never planned to move farther north than Utah or Kansas or be anywhere where you could see it. But I've seen it 2 times in a year, a very interesting year. This is a picture taken by Jessica, her friend. Jessica has the channel Higher, Holier History, and this was taken by her friend Tracy. They live there near Kirtland. So thank you to you guys for this picture. Okay, so I'm looking for any other. Are we going to have more auroras during 2025? Are we going to have damage to the power grid because of a really strong solar flare? I don't know. We'll have to see. Okay, the next thing is I'm looking at Israel and just Judaism as a whole. I have this spreadsheet where I track what I think are Jewish-specific signs that they would recognize as signs of the times. And there is a lot of excitement among religious Jews for Messiah to come, and they're pointing out all these different things that are happening. So, for example, we're having a lot of these type of instances where something happens for the first time in 2,000 years, like the Rosh Hashanah service being held on the Temple Mount, silver trumpets being blown over the Temple Mount. All my references are over here in this column if you want to look it up. But I have a column here to track, the first time in 2,000 years, and there's a number of those on this spreadsheet. So that, and then just other signs in general that they would view as signs, like foxes on the Temple Mount and stuff like that. It seems like those are kind of picking up and becoming more frequent based on what I've collected. And then this one is kind of a separate one, just because I feel like this would really stir the pot. Hamas and Hezbollah, I've looked it up and done videos about it. Both of them have said that part of the reason why this war started on October 7th was because you had these red heifers that came from the United States, specifically from Texas, to Israel with the intent of using them for the red heifer ceremony, ritual, where Jews, it's a key element of reinstating the temple services in Judaism. There's some things that you can do where you're in a state of ritual impurity, but there are many other things, it seems, that you can only do once you are ritually poor. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. It was a late night. Once you're ritually pure, but you need the ashes of a red heifer, and the red heifer is very hard to produce because it has to be virtually perfectly red. I've seen different things, like it can't have more than one, it can't have more than 2 hairs that are of a different color. I've seen that different people say different things, but basically it's like very hard to produce one of these for a number of different reasons. And so if they were able to do it, I think that would it would increase tensions dramatically in the region in the midst of this war. I was thinking that we were going to see this happen in 2024 because they finally got to the point where they were the right age and they were ritually, like they were kosher for the ceremony. And I was like, okay, well, you guys have been trying so long. I would assume that you'd want to do this as quickly as possible in order to carry this out. But we haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen any news on the red heifer. I did interview Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. He's with Israel 365, and he's friends. He knows the people with the Temple Institute that would actually be carrying out the ceremony, and he answered all my questions about this. There's so many misconceptions, and especially among Christians, it seems, that are really anxious about the red heifer, but they make so many mistakes in how it's supposed to happen according to Judaism. So if you're interested in getting the answers to those questions or any questions that you may have about the red heifer, watch this interview. I'll put a link for it in the description box below. You can also go to his channel. He's friends with the head of the Temple Institute. So this is like as close as I can get really to the Temple Institute. So watch this interview if you're interested. Does it have any doctrinal significance for us? I don't believe so. There are a lot of Christians that are looking for this because they're expecting a one-person Antichrist and to fulfill prophecy according to their personal interpretation is that the temple has to be reconstructed and then the Antichrist has to sit in it and be a dictator for the world. And so that's why a lot of evangelical Christians are looking at this. We don't believe in a single person Antichrist like what they're thinking. I know some of you do because you listen to them, but go to my playlist called Antichrist. It's never been our doctrine. We do believe in antichrists, plural, many antichrists, but like a single big bad guy Antichrist, no, that's never been taught. And I actually have quotes that are contrary to that. It's because Christians outside of our faith don't know what to do with these verses that have to do with the great apostasy and Satan. Satan is the great Antichrist. And the great apostasy, when you read those key scriptures, is what's being referred to with the Antichrist, how Satan came and he changed the times and the seasons. And he's been sitting in Christianity, essentially, misconstruing the pure doctrine of Christ and creating all these false Christian denominations. They're doing the best that they can. It's not that they're evil. Everyone's doing the best that they can, but Satan has thrown a wrench in what should have been Christ's kingdom. Had he not, okay, you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. Okay, let's move on from this. And then the last thing is, I think we're all looking to see how this is going to end. These wars, specifically this Ukraine war, as well as the war that Israel is engaged in right now. How's it going to end? I have no idea. There's so much, it seems like there's so much potential for World War III to start. I tend to think that we're actually already in World War III ever since 2001, and that it's been kind of like a big hybrid war, asymmetric warfare. I've done videos about this, but I think that at some point we probably are going to have actual, like where everyone labels it World War III officially out in the open. Are we going to see that this year? Are we going to see nuclear bombs? I don't know. I feel like there's potential. Is the war in Israel that started on October 7th of 2023, is that the final war that's talked about in the scriptures that's going to lead to the war of Gog and Magog? Just really quick, there's always somebody. There are two wars of Gog and Magog. There's one right before the second coming, and then there's one at the end of the millennium. Go to the Bible dictionary. It talks about it there. So is this the war of Gog and Magog? Is it leading up to those final battles of Armageddon and then the siege of Jerusalem? That's what I'm wondering. I feel like it could be. If I had to guess, I would say yes, that we are in that war right now and it's escalating, and who knows what's going to happen this year. That's the big question. What's going to happen this year? Are these two wars going to merge together into World War III? Is China going to make its move and try and take Taiwan? Is some other wild card thing going to happen? Some other war breakout that we're not even thinking about? So it's hard for me to picture. I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to picture how this war in Ukraine ends. It's hard for me to picture what happens with Israel. One of the key pieces is Trump. He's going to become president of the United States once again shortly. Don't know. All we can do is just watch. We can speculate, but more important is just to watch and see what actually happens. So, well, that's going to be it for this one. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. I have additional content on here. And then I have a lot of the quotes that I cover on the channel. In case you don't like to access my spreadsheets, follow me on Instagram. And then I have these story highlights where I have quotes that have to do with these different categories right here. Follow me on Instagram. And then on YouTube, if you haven't subscribed already, please make sure to subscribe. Like this video if you liked it. Leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it. Happy New Year, and I'll talk to you guys later.